The most magical name in motorsports is Ferrari. With more races and more titles than any other team, Ferrari is the Formula One World Driving Championship, and Ferrari's home track is Imola, Italy. 1983 was a vintage year for the famous red cars with the prancing horse trademark at Imola. Turbocharged engines pumping out more than 1,000 horsepower, René Arnoux took the pole position for the Grand Prix of San Marino. And when Patrick Tambay cruised beneath the checkered flag, the true Ferrari fans, the Tifosi, rushed onto the track to embrace him. They could not have known it would be their last celebration at Imola for a decade. The last 10 years have seen Ferrari pushed aside in the annual struggle for racing's greatest prize, the World Championship. The legendary Ferrari reputation has been knocked askew. Ferrari's hopes have been crushed at nearly every turn. And the team that has more victories than any other is mocked as a mere effigy of the Ferrari of old. 1993 has brought little relief. At times it has been mechanical failure. At others, just miserable racing luck. 3 races, 2 cars, 1 6th-place finish thus far. In practice, qualifying, and the races, Ferrari seems to have lost its way. Today, the question remains, can Ferrari reclaim its destiny at Imola in the Grand Prix of San Marino? ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Each year, the largest national group on the rolls of Grand Prix drivers comes from Italy. And so it's no surprise that even the rooftops are full around the circuit that bears the Ferrari name when the Grand Prix of San Marino comes to town. The world's oldest republic is also among the smallest. And so each year, the citizens of San Marino leave their tiny mountaintop above the Adriatic and journey north to Imola, Italy, to meet the teams at the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha, and if you are among the Tifosi, the Ferrari faithful, welcome to your racetrack, just a short distance from the team factory in Modena. Ferrari is to motor racing what the New York Yankees are to baseball, or the Boston Celtics to basketball. Proud traditions based on winning. Unfortunately, there hasn't been much winning for Ferrari of late. In fact, should Ferrari not win this race today, it will mark a new team record for frustration. It's been 37 races since the red cars last took a checkered flag in the Spanish Grand Prix in 1990. Now, should Ferrari pull off the upset and win, you'll see smiles up and down the racetrack. You see, what's good for Ferrari is good for Formula One. Well, so much for romance. What are Ferrari's realistic chances of winning here today? Well, for more on that, we turn to ESPN Formula One analyst Derek Daly. Derek, how do you like the red cars here at Imola?
Well, here at Imola, or in Italy in general, there is such a passion for Formula One racing, and for Ferrari in particular. I think that emotional lift can help a team, but only if the car is fast enough. The Ferrari car here is not a match for the Williams or the McLaren. Now, they've employed a new designer, John Barnard, one of the most talented designers in Formula One, but his first car will not be available till next season to help Ferrari. Today's battle, realistically, you have to look back to McLaren and Williams again. But one of the interesting things is the number of new names and new faces we've seen scoring World Championship points. Damon Hill, who went from obscurity to the Dream Team and 2 second-place finishes, has given him 3rd place in the World Championship. Another English driver, Mark Blundell, made the rostrum in the opening race, his first time ever. And Johnny Herbert, again scoring valuable championship points for the resurgent Team Lotus. Christian Fittipaldi, 4th place in the opening round for the Minardi team. And his teammate Fabrizio Barbazza at one time had trouble qualifying for Grand Prix races. Now he's a point scorer. Zanardi scored his first World Championship points. And what about Ruben Barrichello, a young Brazilian, almost made the rostrum in Donington, definitely a star name of the future.
Well, it's certainly been an exciting year thus far, and as you may be able to tell, the party is in full swing here at Imola. Now, another of the new faces thus far this year is American Michael Andretti, who, as you may know, has not had much fun. He's standing by now with the 3rd member of our Grand Prix broadcast team, James Allen.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, the atmosphere is certainly building down here. I'm with Michael Andretti. Michael, do you feel the Italian crowd is behind you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they're behind me a little bit. Not like Ferrari, though. They're definitely behind their Ferrari team, which is great.
We've had a tough weekend. Friday, you had an accident and then were disqualified. Saturday, you came back with a strong qualifying performance. How are you looking for the race?
Well, like I've been saying the last 3 races, you know, just want to get to the end and try to run a consistent race. I don't think it's one that, you know, we can win unless things, you know, really go our way. So hopefully I can just get it to the end.
Well, you and Ayrton had similar accidents, both when the active suspension reacted strangely to the curbs. Does this car sap your confidence at all?
No, I mean, as long as you know now to not run over the curbs, you know, I think that's the biggest lesson that we learned.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. We hope you can bring it home this time. Thanks a lot. Back to you, Bob.
All right, thank you, James. And once again, we wish Michael well in his efforts to get his Grand Prix career started. But Michael's not the only guy having problems this weekend, Derek.
Well, that's right. Some of the star names that you see on the front of the grid have already created some of their own headlines this weekend during practice and qualifying. In Friday's practice, one of the heartthrobs of the Tifosi, Jean Alesi, tried to use the piece of road that Alain Prost was already on, taking them both out of the first session. Ayrton Senna then, who arrived just 4 minutes before practice began, also tested the concrete. Then Philippe Elliot. Well, he needs more than a sand wedge to get his LaRousse Lamborghini out of this trap. In Friday's qualifying, Michael Andretti lost it coming onto the pit straight, and he put himself in danger of not making the race. And then at the end of the session, Michael's teammate Ayrton Senna copied his move almost exactly, except Senna was fortunate enough to keep it off the wall. On Saturday morning, Patrese got it all wrong at 125 miles an hour and totally redesigned his new B193 Benetton Ford. In official qualifying, and after only 3 laps, Senna had crashed number 3, leaving him without his car for the remainder of qualifying. Then Karl Wendlinger, with the help of an exploded engine, parallel parked his Sauber at the Aqua Mineral chicane. Meanwhile, the McLaren team reconfigured Andretti's car to fit Senna, to give him a last-ditch effort to become the fastest Ford in qualifying. It was not to be, however, as traffic and time became his enemy, and Senna failed to beat Schumacher, coming up a mere 1/100th of a second short as the checkered flag flew at the end of qualifying.
This track can be diabolical in the dry. Can you imagine what it's like in the wet? Did I happen to mention it's beginning to rain here in Imola? Stay with us. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of San Marino is brought to you by Volvo. Volvo would like you to drive safely. And by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. The Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari here in Imola, Italy, and those umbrellas tell you everything you need to know. For the 4th straight race in 1993, there is moisture on the racetrack. Quickly down to the pit lane and James Allen.
Well, that's right, Bob. Just when we thought we were going to get a dry race, it starts to rain. I can't believe it. But there is a critical decision to be made by the teams now. Do they go for wet settings or not? Wet settings, that involves increasing the downforce in order to make the wet tyres function, get them up to temperature, and also soften up the brake balance. If you go for that, of course, if it dries out, you're in big trouble because you lose a lot of speed in the straight line. You create extra drag with that downforce. I just grabbed a quick word on the grid with Mike Andretti. He has gone for wet settings. Alain Prost, he was much more cagey. He wasn't going to tell me what he's going to do. I have a suspicion he's just put a little more downforce on, but not too much. It'll be a very, very interesting start to this race.
All right, James, thank you. Stay with it. There you see the onboard camera for Ayrton Senna. Right now, let's review the starting grid with the help of our Yamaha starting grid. On the pole, his pole streak now at 4, the 24th of his career, Alain Prost of France, and the Williams Renault with a lap averaging 137 miles an hour. Next to him for the 3rd straight race, his Williams Renault teammate, Damon Hill of Great Britain, just 98 1/1000ths of a second off Prost time. Row 2, Michael Schumacher of Germany in the Benetton Ford, a full 1.8 seconds down to the pole position, but more importantly to Benetton, 88 1/1000ths of a second up on the man next to him, Ayrton Senna of Brazil in the McLaren Ford. Row 3 will be Karl Wendlinger of Austria, another great qualifying performance in the Sauber. Next to him, Michael Andretti of the United States in the McLaren Ford, a clutch qualifying performance. Row 4, Mark Blundell of Great Britain in the Ligers, some of the quickest cars on the track in a straight line. And then the crowd favorites. On the outside of row 4, Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari. Inside row 5, Jean Alesi of France in the second Ferrari, who went to the starting grid waving the Ferrari flag, and this place went crazy. Outside row 5 will be Martin Brundle of Great Britain in the second Ligier. Inside row 6, Riccardo Patrese of Italy, a former winner of this race, now driving the Benetton Ford. Next to him, the Lotus Ford of Great Britain's Johnny Herbert. On row 7, Rubens Barrichello of Brazil in the Jordan Hart. Next to him, the LaRousse Lamborghini of Frenchman Philippe Ayot. Row 8 will be Derek Warwick of Great Britain in the Footwork Mugen Honda. We'll have an announcement from them shortly. Next to him, the Sauber of Finn J.J. Leto. Row 9 will be Eric Comas of France of the LaRousse Lamborghini, next to the Tyrrell Yamaha of Italian Andrea De Cesaris. Row 10 will be Terry Boutsen of Belgium, getting more comfortable in his second start in the Jordan Hart. Next to him, Alessandro Zanardi of Italy in the Lotus Ford. Row 11, Aguri Suzuki of Japan in the second Footwork. Next to him, countryman Ukio Katayama in the Tyrrell Yamaha. Row 12, Christian Fittipaldi of Brazil in the second Minardi Ford. Next to Luca Badur of Italy in the Lola Ferrari. And all alone on the last row, Fabrizio Barbazza of Italy in an ill-handling Minardi, the only driver not to qualify for this race, Michele Alboreto, an Italian, a Ferrari driver in his past, today driving a Ferrari-powered Lola. He does not qualify. He will not drive today in front of his home fans. Now let's take a look at the warm-up times. There you see all of the top men. Now this was in dry conditions. We have since had a wet testing practice, and Alain Prost was fastest in that session. Now let's take a look at the race analysis. You see the number of laps, 61. The track, 3.1 miles long. Former winners of this race, a whole new ball game here as we get set to start this race in the rain. Derek Warwick, you've driven here for Tyrrell and tested for Williams. Derek Daly. How long am I going to keep doing that, Derek? Tell us about Imola.
Well, we are both nice people. This is one of the classic Italian road racing facilities that stood in the shadows of Monza for many years until Grand Prix racing came back here to Imola in 1980. It is a power circuit dotted with chicanes, spectacular elevation changes. Top speeds here are in excess of 200 miles an hour down the front straight. Now, in the dry, it has a low grip surface. In the wet, it has been known as having a no grip surface.
Derek Warwick, Daly. There you see the cars coming to a place on the grid. You're on board with Michael Andretti, his teammate Ayrton Senna just ahead of him. The start will be so important. There is Senna's onboard camera on the second row behind Damon Hill, Alain Prost to the left of your screen. Now keep in mind, this is a long straightaway with a gentle left-hand corner known as Tamburello. At the end of it, barely a mile away, the entire field of 25 will reach an all-important braking era. For the Tosa uphill left-hander, they will all get there at 200 miles an hour. It should be exciting. Turn it up. The car's gentle getting away. We see some of the Ferraris juking to the middle of the track. Alain Prost leads away. A clean start thus far. The two Williams cars are side by side. They said there would be no team instructions as they made the run down to the first corner. Now keep in mind, we'll also have tall rooster tails, and one of the Ligers is off. Martin Brundle is off and hard into the wall.
It is Brundle, but did you see Senna being blocked by the Williams car? Left, right, left, right. But Wendlinger and Michael Andretti are side by side again, but Andretti is clear. One of the Jordan cars involved in that incident is Barrichello. Barrichello's in trouble. Another one of that's Schumacher.
One of those Benettons.
It's difficult to pick it out.
Spun around.
Schumacher or Patrese. Oh, the Williams is off.
Damon Hill goes straight on with Ayrton Senna just behind him. Remember Ayrton Senna on the opening lap of the European Grand Prix at Donington, going inside and outside in the wet. That's Riccardo Patrese, who has spun the Benetton at Tosa.
He had problems in practice here, flew off the road. That was in the dry. There is such a low amount of grip here as Damon Hill leads Senna, the second Williams of Prost, Schumacher, and Michael Andretti is safe so far, but we're only halfway around this first lap.
Down the hill they come. Here's where Alain Prost spun off the racetrack on the warm-up lap a couple of seasons ago. Riccardo Patrese being pushed off the racetrack. He has obviously killed the engine. He will not restart. Damon Hill, the surprising early leader. There's Ayrton Senna. There's Alain Prost. Here comes Michael Schumacher.
Pressure situation for Damon Hill. Never before has he led the opening lap of a Grand Prix, and look what he does. Goes straight on to the middle line because he obviously thinks that will keep those wet tires nice and cool.
And Damon Hill just rocketing away on the start as he heads into Tamburello for the next lap.
Damon Hill said on full tanks this car was fantastic. He said a nice bit of finesse on the steering wheel allows you to just drive it naturally, and the time comes very wide under braking. That's the wet line, which is on the outside.
Now let me make a correction. It was not Martin Brundle that went off. As you look right here, that is Mark Blundell at the back going off hard on the run through Tamburello down to the Villeneuve corner. Then you saw his wheel goes back onto the racetrack. It clobbered Ruben Barrichello's Jordan, and I don't believe Barrichello will continue. It looked as though the right front corner was up in the air.
Delicate situation here, underpower in a wet situation like this. Remember, automatic gearboxes, but the Williams automatic gearbox and the clutch is a bit more aggressive than Alain Prost liked at Donington. He said that was a problem.
Damon Hill obviously extending his lead, but he had a close moment going around one of the chicanes. Let's take another look at that.
This is the downhill run to the Aqua Mineral chicane. It's a second gear right-left. Now watch what happens here. Locks up the front. Locks up, misses his turn-in point, and realizes it is safer now. Look, he turns left to miss that high curve, goes over the grass, and manages to hang on to that lead.
The curbs are about 8 inches tall here, and as we've mentioned earlier, there are problems for the cars when you get up on that curve because it lifts the wheels right off of the ground. James Allen has a report from the pits.
I just spoke very quickly to Patrick Head. He tells me that Damon radioed in. It's not just Aqua Minerale where things are very slippy. Also down the hill into that left-hander at Rivazza is lethally slippery. Now, I spoke just before the race to him, and he said he was going to change the brake balance ever so slightly, but that's something that he maybe should have done a little more of. Alain Prost, I spoke to before, he said that the active suspension just does not work for him on the Williams in the wet.
The Williams cars apparently quite a handful in the wet. Both Damon Hill and Alain Prost, after the Donington race, said that the cars were particularly bad shifting up and down, that they were getting a real kick in the back from the cars, made them very difficult to handle. But right now, Damon Hill is just about out of sight. Ayrton Senna has mirrors full of Alain Prost as you watch from Prost's car. The running order right now: Hill, Senna, Prost, Schumacher, Berger, Wendlinger, Michael Andretti in 7th position, Jean Alesi in 8th. Now Senna all over the track trying to keep Alain Prost behind him.
And you can see what's happening. The Renault V10 has more power than the Ford engine in Senna's car. Under acceleration into the gears. Look at this. He catches, he catches, he catches. He pulls out. You better be, oh, that's it. You have to be absolutely alongside Senna before he will leave the door open long enough for you to slip through.
And you can see the McLaren up ahead, squirrely left and right as Senna applies the power as gingerly as he can.
Here he has another little look down the inside. This is the 5th gear, right, left, flick, in through here. This is the last corner, one of the slowest corners on the racetrack. In the dry, it's 60 miles an hour, just over 40 miles an hour in the wet. Now Senna could be in trouble. This is the 200-mile-an-hour run down to the Villeneuve corner. Senna's in trouble here.
And Prost makes the pass. Oh, Senna will stay side by side.
Well, look at that. Prost was on the inside, and yes, he still backed off and let Senna go ahead. Prost is very cagey, though. He's very good at sizing up the situation and making sure his passing attempt will be 100% clean. Remember, these two are chasing the World Championship.
Remarkable, the difference in performance between the McLaren and the Williams in just the space of a week, or 2 weeks make that, since the European Grand Prix at Donington, when Senna absolutely drove away from the Williams cars. Now, it's not as wet as it was then. Derek Daly, is that likely to make a difference?
Well, it's not as wet right now, but we saw at Donington, it changes so rapidly. One of the problems here at Imola is even when the rain stops, Senna said this, it takes a long, long time to dry out. Look at this again. Prost has a little look down the inside, but it's virtually impossible to pass there because Senna can just move his car slightly. Prost will not take the chance. But look how far up the road Damon Hill is now gone.
Ayrton Senna obviously holding up Alain Prost. Senna arrived just before Friday first practice. By that I mean 4 minutes before Friday first practice. The reason we suspect, or we are told, is that Senna was more or less holding the McLaren team at ransom, saying he wasn't going to get on an airplane in Brazil to come here until he was assured that he would have the very best Ford V8 engines. He was given that assurance. He came here. That move was vetoed, we are told, by the Benetton team. Senna got into the car anyway, had a lot of problems in practice and qualifying, and now is holding up Prost.
This is Tamburello. This is Tamburello. Prost has to back off a little bit. And he's not close enough to Senna here. He will not make the attempt here. It's too far behind him coming into this braking zone.
While this battle continues between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, we'll step away briefly and return. As you can see, despite the rain, a crowd of some 150,000 people on hand here at Imola, and we'll be back live in just a moment. We are back live at Imola, Italy, at the Autodromo Enzo and Dino Ferrari, named for the man who founded the Ferrari empire, and his son, who died tragically in 1956. They say old Enzo never got over it. There is Damon Hill. He is the star of the show thus far. He took the lead at the green light from his teammate Alain Prost, the pole sitter for today's race, and he is simply pulling away. He now leads Ayrton Senna in second place by over 6.5 seconds. Alain Prost another second behind, and then it's a big gap of 10 seconds to Michael Schumacher. Keep in mind that Benetton does not have traction control. Here's a look at one of the Ferraris of Gerhard Berger. Let's go back to the start of this race and take another look at how Damon Hill got out in front.
Breezy racetrack. And watch, as soon as the red light goes, they put the foot down. Now, Damon Hill got a very good start. Watch him draw alongside Prost. Now he's alongside Prost, and he drags Senna with him. Now watch what happens around this corner. Hill is now leading. Senna ducks in behind him. Now look at Damon Hill here as the crash happens behind you. But Damon Hill uses some of Senna's tactics to actually keep Senna himself behind.
That was Mark Blundell, who went into the wall hard, but he's now back in the pit area, and he's standing by now with James Allen.
Mark, that was a massive impact. That must have hurt quite a bit.
Fortunately, I came out of it okay, but basically, the car just seemed to lose downforce. I think I was following a racing very closely, and the car just lost downforce and turned straight into the pit wall. So
it's a low grip circuit anyway. It must be really slippy today with the rain.
Yeah, it's very greasy out there, but one of those things.
Thank you. Back to you, Bob.
And there you saw Alain Prost get around Ayrton Senna. Now let's see if he's able to pull away.
Well, something definitely happened, Senna, there, because it was under hard acceleration, and I can only think Senna must have missed a gear. Now, this is a fully automatic gearbox when you accelerate out of corners. And Prost pulled out to the left side and passed so quickly, there must have been something that happened there. But we can take another look at what happened with Prost and Senna. We're inside with Alain Prost. This is a left-hand at the Tosa corner. And watch what happens here. Right there, something happened, Senna, and it even surprised Alain Prost down the inside, and now he chases Damon Hill because the track is drying out, which actually gives more of an advantage to the Williams cars the drier this racetrack gets.
The McLaren very slow off that Tosa corner, and he paid the price as Alain Prost now disappears into the distance. Quick right-left chicane right here. Pit entrance coming up just ahead. Quick left-right, and then on to the front straightaway, past the pits. And that long left-hand swing into Tamburello, where Gerhard Berger had that savage, fiery crash in the Ferrari back in 1989. Now, further back in the field, as you see, Damon Hill has reset fast lap. There is Gerhard Berger making his way around. Behind him, the Sauber, and behind the Sauber is Michael Andretti. Carl Wendlinger driving the Sauber. This is more laps than Michael has gotten in a Formula One race before. Now there's Rubens. That's Terry Boutsen in the second. Jordan going slowly.
Interesting situation after the warm-up this morning, which was in the dry. We can see that Michael is actually catching Carl Wendlinger in the Sauber, but Michael was not happy with this car after the warm-up this morning. It has an oversteer entering corners. Michael rides right up inside Wendlinger. Michael has an oversteer entering corners and an understeer exiting. And when Senna drove this car in qualifying yesterday, exactly the same problems. So Michael was resigned to going to the start line with those problems still in the car. Then when it rained, I have to be honest with you, brilliant as Michael has been in the rain many times, he did not want it to rain here. He did not want an unknown thrown into this situation when he's had such bad luck leading up to now.
You see a dry line now beginning to form on the racetrack. James mentioned earlier, it is not raining at this moment. Recall that Michael Andretti and Carl Wendlinger had that celebrated tangle at Donington 2 weeks ago. All is now calm between them. Wendlinger says it was just a racing accident, not a problem. They've spoken and shaken hands over it.
Look at Michael has a look down the inside of Wendlinger. It looks to me as if Michael is in fact a little bit faster than Wendlinger at the moment, but finding a classic way to pass. But Senna, the team leader for McLaren, is in the pit lane.
The clock is on. James Allen is there.
Senna's in the pits and they put slick tyres on from the looks of things. I'll confirm that with the team, but it does look to me as the car accelerates out the pit lane and Senna has opted for slicks. Thank you.
His teammate Michael Andretti flashes down the start-finish straightaway. Senna is out ahead of him, however. He will lose at least one position. Now Alain Prost resets fast lap.
So Senna takes the gamble first. Now Prost only just passed him. Senna knew immediately that on wet tires he was not going to be able to keep up with the Williams. So why not take a gamble? Jump in and be one of the first people onto slicks. And Michael has got past Carl Wendlinger. But if McLaren took the gamble on Senna, I'm sure they will also take Michael in pretty shortly. Look at Schumacher now.
Schumacher with all sorts of problems. Once again, there is no traction control. Nothing to help the driver get grip to those wheels in the wet. He suffered at Donington 2 weeks ago because of it. He says he has thrashed the team to try to get it for this race. He still does not have it. And when you have a driver as talented as Michael Schumacher behind the wheel, that's a graphic example of what a little bit of technology added to your car can do.
Well, it's a bit of a throwback to the old days. Your traction control becomes your right foot, which is the way it should be. But you might ask, why does he not have traction control? It's the engine manufacturer, Cosworth, who need to come up with an electronic control system that suits their engine. Now, TAG have their own electronics on the Ford engine that Andretti and Senna uses. They can intercept the spark and cut the power when the wheels spin. But Alain Prost is in the pits and James Allen is there.
Yes, Prost in, and they're putting slick tyres, as we thought, on the Williams. Obviously, the Williams team, Prost slightly stalls getting away, as he did at Donington, of course. Prost gone onto slicks. The team, I get the impression the team has called for that stop, not Prost, because Senna's gone onto them, and they just can't afford to let him get away from them.
Now everybody comes in. The Benetton of Michael Schumacher is in. One of the Ferraris is in.
But where is Senna? That's the picture we want to find. How quickly did Prost get into the pits and get back out again? And did Senna gain an advantage by being on slick tires first? Berger is slow. He stalls the Ferrari on the way out.
And he's getting out. A problem with the Ferrari. What a terrible disappointment for Gerhard Berger. They had to get him out of the way because Jean Alesi will be in at any moment, no doubt.
Well, it must be something very serious for Berger to realize as he was accelerating away that there was no point in even staying in that car. It's obviously terminal. It's over.
And what a terrible disappointment to the huge crowd that has waited for hours through a drizzling rain. There is now one Ferrari left in the race, Jean Alesi. There goes Ayrton Senna, now plummeting downhill towards the Rivazza corner.
There's Senna, there's Prost. So Senna did gain the advantage, and it is drawing out lap after lap here, so Prost should have an advantage. But you know how difficult Senna can make it on iffy conditions like we have here now.
Lap by lap, the fast lap changes. Damon Hill has now taken it back from Alain Prost. As you watch Ayrton Senna onto the front straightaway, there is the race leader Hill, still on his wet tires.
Now they will monitor Damon's Hill lap times, but we're inside Michael Andretti. He will get to the pit lane, and James Allen is there.
Michael Andretti comes in nice and gently. The team's signaling him to take it nice and easy. Don't get head up. We're going to put some slick tyres on your car, boy, and you'll be right out there. The team does a nice, smooth job. Tyres are on. He drops the clutch, and out he goes. Absolute mayhem down the pits. He very nearly had a collision a minute ago between Barbazza and Barrichello. Ever so close, a bit like Michael had a few years ago at Long Beach with his father, I think.
A great Formula One style launch out of that pit stop as well. You had to wonder, Michael Andretti making his first Formula One stop. Would he have problems getting going again? None whatsoever. Michael is back on the track. We saw Damon Hill looking for wet parts of the track. He is still on those grooved wet weather tires, but you can bet that there is a pit stop in his very near future. It is Hill, Senna, Prost, Alesi, Brundle, and Schumacher in the 6 points paying positions. We are back live at Imola, Italy, where a ton of pit stops has shuffled the order. Right now, Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, and Damon Hill all running nose to tail in the battle for the lead here in the Grand Prix of San Marino. Now, Damon Hill pitted. He is now on slick tires, but you see the situation he has put himself in. From a nearly 25-second lead, he is now in third place.
Damon Hill stayed out on those wet weather tires just a couple of laps too long. When the track dried out, he lost way too much time. Well, you just said it, 25 seconds. Now he plays catch-up. Prost is now in the prime position of being ahead of Senna, and look how much he pulls out there. Remember, Senna was all over him just one lap earlier, and in the space of one lap, he pulls out this amount of the lead.
Christian Fittipaldi slides the white Minardi Ford out of the way to let the race leader come through. Now here comes Ayrton Senna just behind. Christian could have done his Brazilian countryman a favor there by holding up Prost for just a moment and allowing the McLaren to catch up. Damon Hill struggling with the wheel there.
Great shots in car here. He puts the power on the car, tries to get away. He puts more power on, tries to get away again. You see the line is dry here. Now here's this downhill run, and it is a steep, steep downhill run. Down through the automatic gearbox. Now Senna is caught with traffic. That's the type of help that Damon Hill would need.
Hard on acceleration one more time across the highest part of the racetrack now, down to the second chicane, known as the Variante Alta, the high corners. There you see the running order: Prost, Senna, Hill, Schumacher, Wendlinger, and Andretti. You saw the gaps between the runners.
And you see that Hill still cannot get by Senna. As it dries out, he will get faster. Now he has to find his way past Christian Fittipaldi first. And in this short run here to the very fast S's, he's not going to do it there. Prost comes offline. You see the dry line? When you get off onto that damp surface on slick tires, you have to be so careful. Not only do you hope that the man you're passing sees you, but you have to hope that you judge it properly.
Now as Senna comes up behind these two cars, that's a battle for position between Aguri Suzuki in the footwork and Eric Comas in the LaRousse. They're both one lap down to Prost, the race leader, obviously, but they have a race of their own going, and Senna has to get out of the wet to avoid Suzuki.
I don't think Suzuki saw Senna. In fact, he got such a fright, he jumped on the brakes and lost the position again back to the LaRousse car. But Senna, total commitment down the inside of that corner, and it almost cost him a bit of contact.
You saw all of those cars starting to waddle up the hill. Very slick, obviously, despite the dry line that seems to be forming. You're watching from Damon Hill's car. There are those big curves. The drivers really don't dare get up on them, particularly with the active ride suspension, which has a tendency to overreact, we are told, when they get up on those high 8 or 9 inch curves.
Well, you saw the little piece we did earlier with all these McLaren crashes. It seems that when the McLaren rides up onto the curve, the front suspension does not react quick enough. In fact, it picks the wheels off the ground, lowering the monocoque onto the curve, and then the car flies off the road. It happened to Michael at Donington, Senna 3 times here, Michael here, and Michael, in fact, spun off the road at Silverstone during a test for exactly the same reason. So McLaren need to work on that, because the curbs can actually help you and make you go a little bit faster sometimes.
Across the start-finish line to complete lap number 13, beginning lap 14 of 61 scheduled. Alain Prost with a 2.4-second lead over Ayrton Senna, followed by Damon Hill, another 3 seconds in arrears. Behind Hill it is Schumacher, Wendlinger, Andretti, Alesi, Brundle, Leto, and Johnny Herbert. And the Lotus rounds out the top 10. Felipe Ayot, Alessandro Zanardi, and Fabrizio Barbaza, the only other cars on the lead lap. 1 lap down, Aguri Suzuki, Eric Comas, Andre De Cesaris, Luca Badoer, Derek Warwick, Ukio Katayama, and Ruben Barrichello back out. He is now a lap down.
That was Damon Hill struggling to find his way past one of the LaRousse cars on the run, up to the left-hand, the fast left-hand, and then down again to the slowest corner on the racetrack. The chicane, the right, left, right flick. You daren't hit those curves.
Let's listen to the sound of this Renault working in Damon Hill's car. See if you can pick up the sound of the traction control when it cuts in. Right there. Now, quicker all the way through here. That is a mighty corner right there. We stood and watched during practice. The drivers come right out to the wall, hard on the gas.
That was one of the corners that Senna was consistently faster than Michael Andretti through. It is a fifth gear corner that you enter at 165 miles an hour, and you go through it at 125 miles an hour. We're on the front straight here. Little interesting point. You go from second gear to sixth gear in 6 seconds. That's almost a gear every second, and they accelerate from 60 miles an hour to 185 miles an hour in just under that 6 seconds.
Now he tippy-toes through Tosa. Damon Hill making his way along in third position. It is Prost, Senna, Hill, Schumacher, Wendlinger, and Michael Andretti in a points-paying position. San Marino, the world's oldest, 1,700 years ago, sits atop a mountain over the Adriatic. Just a few hundred acres, one of the world's smallest sovereign nations. Stay with us. Back live at Imola, where Alain Prost leads Ayrton Senna, Damon Hill, and the man with whom you now ride, Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford, who has been struggling mightily all day long, lacking the technological twist called traction control that allows him to keep this car going at optimum speed in wet weather conditions like we have today here in Imola, Italy.
And you saw him rip the tear off his helmet. He had probably half a second to do it. He tucked in behind the Tyrrell, got some dirt and water off the racetrack from the Tyrrell, ducks out. He's going to take a... Oh, he's still not happy. Look, he's looking for another tear-off. He's out of tear-offs, it looks like, from the in-car camera, and he desperately needs another one. The problem is now, when you wipe your visor with the back of your glove, it's like having no water in your car with your windscreen wipers. It actually makes it worse.
He went to the visor with the back of his glove. He's having exactly the problem you just mentioned, Derek. Let's get down to the pit lane. James Allen has more on wet versus dry setups and what it means to these drivers.
Well, don't let the dry line on the track fool you. It's still spitting with rain down here. And of course, going back to what I said at the top of the show, it's all about whether or not to go for a wet or a dry setting. If you've gone for a wet setting, you put a lot of downforce on. Michael Andretti has gone for that kind of setup, and he will be finding now that he's losing time on that long straightaway into Tamburello, down into Tosa. So it's a real fight now. We will soon start to see who has the wet settings and who has the dry.
Thanks, James. There's Michael Andretti just coming into your picture. He is down now 4.1 seconds to Carl Wendlinger. He was right behind that black Sauber on the left of your picture earlier. Now, as James mentioned, he's beginning to lose some ground.
And that is De Cesaris in the Tyrrell and Derek Warwick in the footwork car. That's the traffic. They're embroiled in a race of their own. Wendlinger has made it through. Michael Andretti will be the next car to put a lap onto Warwick and De Cesaris.
Michael now begins to close up once again, getting the feel of that Formula One car. De Cesaris kicks up a spume of water, I guess, right there. And Michael will have his work cut out for him, getting around one of the hardest men to pass in Grand Prix racing.
Has a little look down the inside. This is Yamaha V10 power versus Ford V8 power. But look at the comfort level that Prost has. He is now almost 4 seconds clear of Senna. The track looks dry. And in fact, he's 5.5 seconds officially. Our Olivetti here obviously is 1 lap behind.
There comes Damon Hill. Just behind him, Christian Fittipaldi, who is a lap down, running, in fact, dead last in this race. 25 cars started, 21 remain. Mark Blundell had a big crash at the first corner that took him out. He's all right. Gerhard Berger also out in one of the Ferraris, and that is much more important to this enormous crowd who came here to watch the red cars try to break a 37 race losing streak. Also out out of the race, Terry Boutsen for the Jordan team, Ricardo Patrese, who spun off. So some of the top cars in the series no longer running. You see Damon Hill beginning to close up a little bit now on Ayrton Senna. The Renault, we are told, now revs to 14,700 RPM. Divide that by 60, you come up with 368 revolutions per second. Divide that in half, and you have 164 spark plug firings per second. All in all, pretty staggering.
Look at this here. Zanardi ducks down the inside of Barrichello. He ducks down, but Senna does not need to get involved in that battle between the two of the young guns of Formula One, Zanardi and Barrichello.
Make that 184 sparks per second. Great battle here now through Tamburello, headed down towards Villeneuve. Boom! Barrichello goes around and nearly clips the wall.
And look at the Lotus comes down the inside again. Remember, they're having their own fight. Oh, Barrichello's off. Almost takes Damon Hill with him. What a situation in traffic. You have to be so careful. The young guns fighting for their own position, and Damon Hill almost bought the farm for the afternoon right there. And no.
Barrichello has now high-centered the car. As you see, he cannot get traction. He could get a push from there legally. Now, here's another look. Barrichello on the left, the Lotus on the right.
The Lotus takes the inside line. Now, Barrichello's on the left. Look, and Damon Hill. It was in the lap of the gods there. Let's take a look from Damon Hill's in-car. Remember, he saw it all happen ahead of him. That's the Lotus kicking up the water down the inside. That's Senna straight ahead. Senna sees what's going on here. Watch Senna duck down to the inside. There's Senna. He's clear. Look at him, has a little correction. And watch what happens here with Barrichello. He's on the power, lost control. You do not get away with that very often.
At the slowest point of the racetrack, it couldn't have happened at a better place, giving everybody that last possible instant to move around. I've redone my math, by the way, and in fact, it's 245 revolutions per second in that Renault. Still pretty quick, I'd say.
Bob, we didn't even leave it. That's okay. The bottom line is, it is going very, very fast. Now, look how much Hill lost. In fact, he dropped way back behind the Lotus here. Look how much quicker that V10 Renault engine revving to 14,500. Is that, and he's off in the gravel trap. You better keep her going there or you're buried. He's buried. He is buried.
What happened to Damon Hill? I was about to say you could see the yellow flag still waving. That meant that the Jordan of Barrichello was likely still to be there. Now he's being told by the corner workers to get out of the car. They want to winch it off. Barrichello's still there. Damon Hill will be ordered out of his car for safety reasons.
Damon Hill, what a disaster situation for him. Again, he had to make a second pass on the Lotus. This is one of the most difficult areas. Remember, the approach here above 195 miles an hour, even in the wet. And here's what happened here. He comes inside the Lotus. He's on the outside line, and he just brakes too late because he got across to the inside. And look at this. He knows he doesn't have enough road. He knows he doesn't have enough road. Here comes trouble right there in the gravel trap. You need more than a sand wedge to get out of those sand traps.
The right front wheel kept turning. He was doing everything he could. He just could not get traction on the front end and just understeered straight on.
He knew if he locked the brakes, he'd lose his steering totally. What he was hoping for was that he could modulate the brakes and have enough road on the outside to just about scramble round. Remember, the higher he went on the racetrack, the wetter the racetrack is. Damon Hill will be talking to himself tonight about that terrible mistake.
After two straight runner-up finishes in his very brief Formula One career, Damon Hill is now out, so that makes the running order Prost, Senna, Schumacher now up to third, Carl Wendlinger fourth, Michael Andretti is now in fifth, and Jean Alesi moves his Ferrari into the sixth position. Martin Brundle, J.J. Leto, Johnny Herbert round out the top 10. The rain continues to mist here in Imola, and it will no doubt affect the continuation of this race. Stay with us. Welcome back to Imola, Italy, between the cities of Bologna and Rimini in the central part of Italy. For the last 13 years, one of the centers of Formula One activity. A banner just like that one decorates just about every street in this city. And in the nearby Autodromo Enzo et Dino Ferrari, you're on board with Michael Schumacher working lap number 22 of 61 in this race. There's a look at the leaderboard and the intervals further back. Michael Andretti closing up on the Sauber of Carl Wendlinger. Let's get a quick pit report from James Allen.
Talked a good message of the Benetton team about Michael Schumacher's tear-off strips. The reason why he couldn't find one is because he doesn't like to wear them in the wet, and he doesn't wear them, so it was just him wiping his visor with his glove. Some of the other drivers, they've got the tear-off strips. As this track begins to dry with all the rubber that was laid down during the weekend and the water picking that all up, very dirty visors. Michael Schumacher's really got his work cut out this weekend.
Well, I beg to differ, James, but we could see that he was distinctly grabbing up at his left temple. Either that or he was trying to scratch his head through the helmet.
And if he doesn't like tear-offs or doesn't wear tear-offs, today is a classic situation where he needs to realize he better get to like them because they are a big, big advantage in this wet, dry condition.
A guy who could use one is Michael Andretti. Look at the front of his McLaren as he pulls up behind Derek Warwick. All that dirt right on the white nose of the car.
Look at Michael slides down the inside of Warwick. Warwick stayed high. That's good. That's what we like because Michael had been closing, and you did mention it. Here's Sandy. She's in good form, and she's excited here.
There is a contingent from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, watching Michael in action, trying to bring him luck in his 4th race of a Grand Prix career. We hope goes on for a long, long time. He's doing the family proud here today. Moving up, he could challenge Carl Wendlinger for 4th place very soon. Wouldn't it be something if he could get to the podium?
Well, we thought it would be something if he could get around the first lap, but suddenly that all changes now. We have 23 laps in the book for Michael. He looks good, and the conditions that are drying out here are falling into his territory. He wanted it dry. He didn't want this gray area unknown of wet dry in this race here at Imola.
There is Alain Prost, who is pulling away at the rate of about a second a lap at this point. He is 12 seconds up on Ayrton Senna in 2nd place. Michael Schumacher 28 seconds behind Senna, another 10 seconds back to Carl Wendlinger. Then Michael Andretti just 3 seconds behind, 14 seconds back to Jean Alesi in the last points-paying position. Now, while Senna is up front, Derek, let's take another look at what happened to his teammate just a few laps ago.
Let's have another look here at Damon Hill. Now look, he's by the Lotus. He tries to go to the inside. He's just carrying too much speed. He runs out of road. Now watch what he does here when he gets on the gravel. He accelerates. Watch the rear wheels. Rear wheels. There it is. Accelerates. Accelerates, trying to drive it through the trap. Otherwise, he knew he was finished. Unfortunately, he didn't give enough power, but I'm not even sure you could get out of it. We've seen many cars get into those traps and accelerate, and they never actually make it through. Remember, they're designed to catch Formula One cars and to stop them getting to the barrier. That's exactly what they've done.
38 minutes and 20 seconds into the race for race leader Alain Prost. Behind him, you see the gaps to Senna, Schumacher, Wendlinger, Andretti, and Alesi. Behind them, Martin Brundle is 7th, followed by J.J. Leto, Johnny Herbert, and Alessandro Zanardi. Now here's Michael Schumacher coming up to put a lap on Felipe Alliot.
Schumacher versus Senna. The 4th fight has gone on all through practice and qualifying here. Now Schumacher is chasing Senna. He is actually over 20 seconds behind him, so he needs as much help as he can get through traffic here. Now here's a Ford V8 blowing by the Lamborghini V12. Lamborghini bought some development engines here that they ran on Saturday, hoping to squeeze another bit of horsepower out of these. But that Lamborghini car is one of the few cars that you would call a regular car. This is Christian Fittipaldi down at the Aqua Mineral chicane, right in front of Michael Andretti. As if Michael doesn't have enough heart attacks in F1, Christian gives him another one.
He's getting an education in what we hope will be his first full-length Grand Prix. As you watch Michael Schumacher rocketing around, Derek explained earlier that this team needs traction control, and that has been the subject of an enormous volcano of pit rumor this weekend. There's Carl Wendlinger, the man immediately ahead of Michael Andretti. Tom Walkinshaw, the technical director for the Benetton team, was called away suddenly back to England yesterday. We understand it had something to do with negotiating that was going on back and forth between the McLaren and Benetton teams over the possibility of making everyone happy in the pit lane, sharing some technology. We mentioned earlier that the footwork team had an announcement this weekend. They have bought active suspension technology from the McLaren International Tag Group, and they'll be mounting that on their car shortly. And a lot of people feel that that is what will save Formula One as the most technologically advanced racing series in the world. If teams are allowed to share the research and development burden that makes up so much of the budgets of these teams. It is Prost, Senna, Schumacher, and Wendlinger as you look down from high above a jam-packed Autodromo Enzo and Dino Ferrari here at Imola. Stay with us. We are back on the pit straightaway at the Autodromo Enzo and Dino Ferrari, inside the Ferrari of Jean Alesi in the third year of a 3-year contract with the team. Many people wonder whether one of the superstars of Formula One will be back with Ferrari next year as they continue to try to develop their team. Luca de Montezemolo, who is the president of Ferrari, is here this weekend. We asked him what the Ferrari name means to him and what he hopes to accomplish in his job.
Ferrari for me is a choice of life. Ferrari for me is a part of my heart. I love our cars, I love our people, I love our product. And we are working very, very hard to recuperate. Ferrari is the most successful team in the history of motor racing. We are up and down. Now we try to invert the trend and to be up. In the year 90, we lose the championship in the last race. Then we have done 2 bad years, and we hope this year to try to. It's very easy to go down. It's bloody difficult to come up.
And of course, he says he wants to reverse the trend back up again. He was instrumental in the upward trend when Niki Lauda became world champion when he drove for Ferrari in the years past.
Meanwhile, Jean Alesi flashing through the corners. Notice his hand position on the steering wheel, very high. Not like the 9-3 or 10-2 position most people use. He gets his hands way up high because of the angle of that steering wheel. He says it hurts his arms if he tries to hold his hands directly opposite one another.
Big shots of Michael, yes, still chasing Wendlinger, not quite as close now. In fact, he's 2.5 seconds behind him. Michael's laps were slightly erratic, but only because he was stuck in traffic. Now that he's clear, he has a clear run to try and catch Wendlinger. In fact, there they are, both in the same picture here. So Andretti clearly faster than Carl Wendlinger.
I would make the gap about 1.5 seconds, perhaps. Carl Wendlinger has not done an awful lot of racing recently. He's had problems in the early going, and you need to wonder a little bit about driver fitness. This race could take easily an hour, 40 or 45 minutes, and those are awfully strong G-loads to take over that length of time.
Well, we were talking in the paddock earlier on about driver fitness. That whole thing came up. They said Senna, they believe, is the physically in the best shape of any Formula One driver. It's difficult to know, actually, because it depends on how physically difficult one car is over another. For example, a Williams car may not be physically as difficult to drive as, say, a McLaren that doesn't have the horsepower, that you have to hustle that car so much more. So, you know, I think physical effort plays a big role in how fit you're determined to be.
Absolutely. Ayrton Senna, a year ago in this race, driving what was acknowledged as a very, very mean-spirited McLaren last year, had to be lifted out of the car at the end of this race and put on a saline intravenous solution before he could make his way up to the podium. It was a very, very difficult race for him. We have cooler conditions here today. The temperature, I guess, maybe in the mid to low 60s, and a very strong cloud cover, a light breeze from the southwest, and of course that rain keeping things cool, so the drivers should be in pretty good shape.
Interesting situation here. Wendlinger, you can see being reeled in by Michael, but Wendlinger is not able to make much headway trying to get by that car, the footwork car ahead of him, which in fact is not a race for position. That will be a lapped car, but he's having difficulty actually hauling his way past him.
As Michael continues to close in, James Allen has more from the McLaren garage.
Well, Bob, just a quick add-on to what you were just saying about fitness. Imola is, in fact, the second most physical circuit, and it's very, very difficult indeed here. After Magny-Cours in France, which is physically the most difficult, the drivers will have taken on 10 pints of fluid this morning, and they'll lose up to 4 pounds in body weight during the course of this 1.5-hour race. But down here in McLaren, well, the question mark is, they have the capability from Imola onwards, this race onwards, to change the characteristics of their active suspension system from the pits. something Williams can't do. So we need to look very closely at the lap times of Ayrton Senna and Michael Andretti to see whether or not the McLaren engineers are in fact just tweaking with the computer, using the telemetry system to change the characteristics of that active suspension system.
We were on board with the Ferrari. There you see Michael Andretti continuing to close up, just a couple of car lengths behind Carl Wendlinger. Our host broadcasters here, RAI Television from Italy, and I'm afraid we'll have to blame them for that problem. Now there's Christian Fittipaldi going around the chicane again on the grass.
Well, it must be shorter and quicker because he's now done it twice, managed to keep that car in a straight line, but you can't get away with that too many times. Again, backward Wendlinger cannot find his way past the footwork car, and Michael closes in.
Up and over the hill to the Variante Alta. I believe that's a Guri Suzuki just ahead of Carl Wendlinger.
Much quicker through the chicane there. He turned right, he turned left. The McLaren was much faster as it turned left. You've got to go offline here to make the pass. That's the difficult situation for Michael now that he is right up behind him. Michael's rain light is still on. Wendlinger has turned his out. The rain light can be a drain on the battery.
Michael closes in. Here's an idea of just how quickly these McLarens are turning. Ayrton Senna, in the warm-up in dry conditions earlier today, was 19th fastest at the Tamburello, the high-speed corner on this track. Out of 25 cars, 19th fastest. At the start-finish line, he was 14th fastest. In overall time, he was third. Oh, Derek Warwick has punched the tire barrier in the footwork.
Another bad day for Derek Warwick. He's still in the car. I would think he should get out of that thing very quickly in case another car leaves the racetrack, but you can see it needs to be taken away with one of those cranes because that right front suspension is ripped from that monocoque.
You can see also that Carl Wendlinger in the black Sauber has 3 layers of wing in the back of that car. Michael just 2 on the McLaren, so he's carrying a little bit less wing, even though, as James Allen reported, he added some to give him extra downforce in the wet conditions we started with. He appears to be carrying less overall downforce than the Sauber.
Well, in a wet-dry situation, you sit on the starting grid and you make a decision. You either go wet, dry, or in the middle, and you do not know what's going to happen. So whatever Wendlinger has put into that car, you can see that Michael is a little bit faster. That's the way the game is played sometimes. Look at how good these cranes are. Literally winches that car right off the racetrack. I hope he's not going over the grandstand. If he did, I'd have to see that old strap break.
There are 14 of those huge cranes stationed around this 3.1-mile track. Yellow flag out there while Derek Warwick's car is lifted away. Michael continues to close in on Carl Wendlinger, and we have a report now. It's beginning to rain harder again around the racetrack. That would put things in an altogether different tactical chapter.
Great experience here for Michael Andretti. This is exactly what he needed. Mileage under his belt. Now look at this challenge on Wendlinger. He's obviously quicker down the straight. This is the risky bit. Oh, he gets on the wet. Did you see that? He got on the wet. The outside tires of the McLaren gave it a quick flick. Here we go again. These two are in a fight again, but Michael pulled off a great move and wasn't able to make a stick because of the lack of power getting onto the road as he left the corner. There are no hard feelings between these boys. Look at this. Oh, Andretti got on the curb. When he was on the curb in practice and qualifying, he got in deep trouble. I will guarantee you he probably came off the power.
That is for 4th place. Wendlinger keeps it for the moment. Michael will now look right down inside. He spins. He has spun. He keeps it running. Yep.
Don't spin again. You got to keep that engine running. He knows that. He knows that.
As long as the engine keeps running, he may be pushed out of a dangerous position.
I think he stalled it. He just stalled it. You saw that little flick. That was when he let the clutch out again. You're not allowed to push start these cars. Here it is. He closed up on Wendlinger so fast, jumped on the brakes, and looped it on the way into the chicane. Now he's still safe here. The engine is running, and then he stalls it. Michael was running in 5th place, about to make a challenge for 4th place from Carl Wendlinger.
And so the disappointments continue for Michael Andretti.
32 laps into the race. His Formula One career now amounts to a total of 37 laps in 4 races.
What do you tell him when he comes back to the garage, Derek?
Well, I know what Ron Dennis doesn't tell him. He doesn't tell him anything bad. Ron Dennis is so much behind Michael Andretti. He is so positive with him that, in fact, he laughs and jokes sometimes about his incidents because he does not want Michael to have any more pressure than Michael puts on himself. And Michael does put a lot of pressure on himself because he is so competitive. But the team do not. They are 100% behind Michael.
There you see the gap up front. Alain Prost with 23.3 seconds in hand over the second place car of Ayrton Senna. What a tough break for Michael Andretti. The yellow lights warned them. This was the spot where it happened. Michael is out of the race. We'll take a quick time out, but we want to remind you, coming up today at noon, 9 a.m. Pacific time, an ESPN tradition, 6.5 hours of live coverage of the NFL Draft. Chris Berman, along with Joe Theismann, Mel Kiper, and former Buffalo Bills general manager Bill Polian. Tom Jackson will be at the New England Patriots headquarters for the #1 pick. We'll have live reports also from the Cowboys, Buccaneers, Bears, and Eagles headquarters. All coming your way, 6.5 hours of live coverage of the NFL Draft today at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Michael Andretti is walking back to the pits. We'll try to get a word with him. Stay with us. A huge crowd on hand here in Imola, Italy, but the umbrellas are out because it continues to rain as we have completed 36 laps of 61 scheduled. We're past halfway. Alain Prost is the race leader. Behind him, Ayrton Senna, now 25 seconds back. 4 cars remain on the lead lap. Michael Andretti, who drove so well and had his McLaren in the points early on, is now out of the race. Let's take another look at what happened to him.
This is the run-up to the Varianta Alta chicane. He closes in on Wendlinger, and then the car gets away from him. He complained of oversteering corners earlier, and he has the engine running. Look, he puts too much power on spins. Now he stops, and watch him drop the clutch here. Drops it there, stalls the engine, and that was the end of his day.
I wonder if traction control played some role in him stalling the car there. It would obviously feel very little, if any, traction at the rear wheels and would thereby cut the ignition spark in order to slow the wheels turning and, well, help Michael kill it right there in the grass.
And now look at the battle we have for this 4th place. That's Jean Alesi. We're inside in the Ferrari, much faster than the V10 Ilmor in the Sauber. Oh, he gets so close with those wheels.
Alesi is on the dry part of the track in the run down to the corner, and he will take the position. He is now up to 4th, and the crowd will go crazy. You see some folks waving their Ferrari flags. Jean Alesi trying to wrestle that car up onto the podium.
They are both 1 lap down to the leaders, but Alesi now giving the Ferrari fans something to cheer about here. Berger went earlier. Now, if Alesi clawed his way onto the victory roster, not necessarily win, but if he stood on the podium, I guarantee you that Tifosi will go absolutely berserk here because they have not had much to cheer about from their favorite Ferraris so far this season.
1 point scored in 1993. That while Gerhard Berger was sitting still on the last lap in the rain in South Africa. The only point for the Ferrari team this year. Jean Alesi now tries to move around. This would be Aguri Suzuki in the footwork car. Derek Warwick is out of the race. 14 cars of the 25 starters are now still in it.
Alesi is the man that gives 110% all the time. You can see the fans build their own stands here. Look, they cheer and they cheer because they know they're now seeing that Alesi, in fact, has just taken that position. But Jean Alesi said this week, 100% in the Ferrari is not enough. Did he raise his hand?
He was. I think he was gesturing to the flag stand at the man in front of him. Suzuki is not watching his mirrors, not letting them by.
Suzuki is not in this fight, and Alesi is having a huge amount of problems getting by here.
He gets around. Now it'll be Carl Wendlinger's task. Of course, by now, Aguri Suzuki probably knows he's being caught from behind. Let's take another look from the onboard camera in the Ferrari, and you'll see just how frustrated these drivers can get as the Ferrari disappears over the top of that hill.
The great thing about, of course, these in-car cameras, everything is caught on the tape, and you can replay it. Now watch what happens here. He raises his arm. He's pointing at the flagman saying, "Get that car out of my way." Give him the blue flag. Tell him to move over. He's not in the race for the position that I'm chasing, which is now 3rd place.
Alesi, a lap down. He will have to get by another car before he can begin to close in a little bit on Michael Schumacher, who is 41 seconds ahead of him. There you see the running order. Martin Brundle is now up into the points. 10 for first, 6 for second, then 4, 3, 2, and 1 down to 6th place. What a boost it would be for Martin Brundle, who has not finished a Grand Prix yet in 1993 for the Ligier team. What a great thing it would be for him to get a point.
And look how easily the Renault V10 pulls out and passes the Lamborghini V12. Pulls out, doesn't even need a slipstream. Pulls out. We saw Alio duck in behind the Williams, and he's not even able to stay with him on this front straight. As it dries out, they creep closer to 200 miles an hour before they get to the braking zone here, which is at the Villeneuve right-hand corner here. Of course, Villeneuve, still one of the most famous men and names and drivers from Ferrari here. People still walk around here with Villeneuve flags and hats and T-shirts. So revered was his driving talents when he drove for the prancing horse.
And for the name so closely associated, the number so closely associated with Villeneuve is the number 27, and that is the number on the Ferrari that Jean Alesi drives today. He says he is very aware that Villeneuve is one of his heroes and that he is proud to be carrying the number 27.
You can clearly see that Wendlinger is in trouble. Not so much in trouble, but just going slowly. Brundle now gathers him up and is about to make a move for him. But J.J. Leto, who had a lot of trouble with the front suspension on this car, is now about to move up and give his teammates some trouble also.
There you see that splash of lime green, feathers painted on the headgear of J.J. Leto from Finland as he begins to close up on Martin Brundle. Leto will try to get into the points. And in the pits, all the crews can do is watch and wait. We'll be back for more live coverage in a moment. Back at Imola, Italy, in the Grand Prix of San Marino, on board the Ferrari with Jean Alesi, now 49 seconds down to the third place Benetton Ford of Michael Schumacher, so Alesi is losing ground. It's time for our Suzuki race recap. The leader is Alain Prost. There has been one lead change in the race as Alain Prost took over during pit stops from his teammate Damon Hill. Ayrton Senna also involved in that battle. Hill later went off, and Prost has led the race from that point. Lap 12 it happened on, and Prost has led the race from then on. Now someone is off on the racetrack just to the right. Couldn't tell exactly who it was. It might have been the footwork of Aguri Suzuki, who's been going slowly for some time on the racetrack and was dead last in the field. No, it is the Ferrari. Jean Alesi is parked. Oh, my word.
No sooner had the Tifosi waved their flags when Jean Alesi took fourth place than it's all over on the uphill run to the Peraltella. I can almost say it. Here it is. Such a shame we've lost his in-car camera now, because Alesi is one of the most entertaining drivers from inside his race car. He fights the prancing horse so much. This is the braking zone at the end of the long straight. Everything looks good here. You can see him use the buttons. Look at his thumb on his left hand as he flicks the gears down. Now he turns in. Little correction there, little correction, and it's under acceleration out of the racetrack, and something breaks. He slows down, fiddles around with everything, and heads for the green patch.
Nothing dramatic about that. He simply lost drive and parallel parked it next to the wall. What a terrible break. Meanwhile, down in the pit lane, James Allen has Michael Andretti.
Well, Michael, 34 laps in, you were in a points-paying position. We thought it was looking so good. What happened?
Well, I was having a problem. We had the brake balance set up for the wet, and I couldn't reach the adjuster to put more to the front. And I started locking my rears, and I had to go at Wendlinger, and I locked my rears and almost overshot the corner. And then I was up behind him again, and I mean, I wasn't even trying to pass him. And all of a sudden, my rears locked going into the corner, and it just swapped ends on me. It was a shame because, you know, I just wanted to bring it home. I thought the next lap by on the straightaway I should be able to get Wendlinger at that point because I was closer to him, and, you know, I was just trying to buy my time, and it just caught me when I went to get on the brake.
Okay, Michael, we understand Senna's out, so we'll throw back to the box. Thank you.
You saw Michael whisper, he's out. There you see on the left, Ayrton Senna, who was running in second place, has pulled to the side of the road, one of the Jordans in the background.
And here's a major blow to the World Championship position that Senna controlled because of superb performances in Brazil and in Donington in particular. Prost now is in a maximum points paying position, but what a rough weekend for McLaren all over. Senna had 3 crashes, and now the conditions almost fall into his perfect conditions for him, and now he's out.
If Alain Prost goes on to win the race, he will pull to within 2 points of Ayrton Senna in the battle for the World Championship.
So Brundle pulls clear of the Sauber, and now the Sauber teammates battle among themselves. J.J. Leto has hauled himself up behind Karl Wendlinger, who he knows is running slowly. Oh, look, he chops him off. No team orders here. Difficult to pass. This is where Patrese crashed in practice, 120 miles an hour through here. Very difficult to pass, and there's almost no room down here. But Suzuki, in the footwork, is again holding Wendlinger up.
Tremendous attrition here today at Imola. We're used to having it, but not quite like this. There's Fabrizio Barbaza going around and pounding that high curb. You can see just how high it is. The car falls off a shelf as he comes off that curbing, but he kept the engine running and drove away.
Michael mentioned earlier that he had trouble adjusting the brakes. We know, look at Senna, waves to the crowd. He knows, well, he appreciates his fans. But Michael mentioned earlier, and we said it, in fact, we knew about it on the grid, he changed to wet weather settings. On a wet weather setting, you actually turn the brake bias to the rear, because otherwise the balance is unsettled in the wet conditions. Now, as it dries out, you need to be able to adjust the car yourself. Michael said he couldn't reach the adjuster, and as it dries out, you lock the rear brakes, and the harder you use them, the worse you lock those rears, and that's what caught Michael out.
Fairly staggering news that he was not able to reach the brake bias adjuster. Prost, Schumacher, Senna, Brundle, Wendlinger, and Leto are now the top 6. Johnny Herbert continues along with Alessandro Zanardi in 8th, Felipe Alliot in 9th, and Fabrizio Barbaza 10th, followed by Aguri Suzuki. 11 cars remain in the race unofficially as we continue working lap number 44 of 61. As you can see, it is Prost and Schumacher out front, Prost with 51 seconds in hand, and those are the only 2 cars on the lead lap right now. Martin Brundle is well behind Schumacher. On board with Schumacher as he makes his way around this 3.1-mile circuit. You can see the rain on the lens. This one's not over yet. You're looking live at Imola, Italy, where the Ferrari flags are still waving on the hillside, but both of those cars are out of the race. So is Damon Hill for the Williams team, and he's standing by now with James Allen.
Well, that's right, Bob, and with a very disappointed Damon Hill. Damon, a bit of a brake problem, is that it?
Yeah, I had a problem with the brakes this weekend, and when it dried out, that made obviously the work on the brakes harder, and eventually it caught me out, and I just didn't have enough brakes to stop for the corner.
You had 2 great results, and this must be a real disappointment to you. You must have been looking for a win here.
Well, I thought I could do, get a good result, at least come in the top 3, so very disappointed not to finish.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Damon. And while I'm here, Bob, update on Karl Wendlinger's situation. In fact, he has gone for a full wet setting, so he's losing an awful lot of time down that straightaway, and that's why he's been dropping back. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much. There you see the Saubers in action on the high part of this racetrack, heading for the Variante Alta and then the downhill run to Rivazza before they pull around through the Marlboro chicane and up onto the pit straightaway.
And you just caught a glimpse of Johnny Herbert in the Lotus car. Now he joins this freight train, running in a points-paying position again for Lotus. He is 6th, and it's probably unfair to say that Suzuki in the footwear car is actually holding Wendlinger up, because Wendlinger went for a wet weather setup, which is high downforce, which means he's slow down the straight, which is the easiest place to pass. Now Suzuki has the Mugen, which is the Honda V10 engine in that car, and he is simply quicker down the straight than Wendlinger.
Prost, Schumacher, and Brundle. Martin Brundle's season turned around a year ago here at Imola when he was driving for the Benetton team. He scored in virtually every race the rest of the season and then lost his job nonetheless. He's back with the Ligier team, and he is in 3rd place today. Right now you see Suzuki pulling up on Fabrizio Barbaza in the white Minardi. There is Wendlinger. Just a fraction of a second behind him is his teammate, J.J. Leto.
Oh, look at this. Oh, he didn't get by him. So Barbaza did not let Suzuki through. So now this freight train will close up bumper to bumper, one behind the other. Did you see Johnny Herbert stick those rear wheels on the curb and raise the water?
2 weeks ago in wet Donington Park, Johnny Herbert made one pit stop from his wet weather tires to his slicks, stayed on the slicks the rest of the way, and scored a 4th place finish. He is doing very, very well in the wet. He is always a threat here. And right now, he pulls up behind that lime green helmet of J.J. Leto.
Oh, Wendlinger moves aside. He moves aside to let his teammate go by. That may be team orders, but it might cost him Herbert also. Yes, it does. Herbert goes out wide, gets those outside wheels on the wet patch, and safely makes the pass. So Herbert suddenly jumps to 5th, and J.J. Leto has that 4th place.
Give credit to Carl Wendlinger. He knew when he was a beaten man. He drops from 4th to 6th very quickly. And now the battle will between that man, J.J. Leto, and that man, Johnny Herbert.
V10 Ilmor engine, which will become a Mercedes as soon as some success comes here. We see Wendlinger, he is in the pit lane, so that's what he was doing. He was on his way to the pit lane, so instead of holding anybody up any longer, he let them go and drove straight to his pit. Long pit stop here, but we saw him clean. They cleaned his visor. Look at the smoke from Wendlinger, and he puts the car on wets. I believe they are groove tires.
I believe they are, as he rockets back out onto the racetrack. He just came by our announce position with that flatulent roar from a car on full RPMs, right up against the rev limiter in that V10 Sauber engine built by the Ilmor people, the folks who have had so much success with the Chevrolet IndyCar engines. Now you see raindrops on the lens of our helicopter camera.
Lotus could have a good day here because Zanardi is about to join the end of this freight train. There he is in the top of the picture. So Zanardi reeling in J.J. Leto, Johnny Herbert, and he's ahead of Wendlinger at the moment, who just made that pit stop.
Lotus is running 3rd in the Constructors' Championships behind McLaren, Ford, and Williams-Renault. Williams will take the lead in that battle should Alain Prost score any points at all in today's race. But Lotus has an opportunity to score a good batch of points today. Herbert in 5th, Zanardi in 6th.
Great race here. The Lotus team took themselves off to Mugello, which is a local racetrack here in Italy. Tested for a couple of 100 miles on the way down here with Johnny Herbert. Said they understood more about this car. The key to this Lotus, believe it or not, is this active suspension they have is probably the most advanced active suspension in the pit lane. But they will tell you, look at Zanardi. Look at Zanardi. Tries to come down the inside. Oh, his teammate. He doesn't get enough room to make it. But I was saying Lotus has the most advanced active suspension, but they don't fully understand the car. What I mean by advanced, they can plug a computer, a PC, into that car, program it to make the front suspension softer or stiffer, then send the driver out.
Working lap number 50, you see the battle. Now Zanardi drops back just a little bit. We'll take a quick timeout. We'll let you know what happens. We'll be back live with more coverage from Imola, Italy, and the Grand Prix of San Marino. Welcome back to the artful city of Imola, just south of Bologna in central Italy, where the ladies are pretty, the Chianti is sharp and crisp, and the fettuccine is always Bolognese. And for the last 12 years, it's been the home of the Grand Prix of San Marino. Carl Wendlinger and the Sauber back into the pits now. They have put slick tires on the car, but they're also working in the engine compartment, it would appear. Clips back down, but this is a long stop. Wendlinger obviously having problems. Meanwhile, on the racetrack, Alessandro Zanardi in the Lotus has gotten around his teammate Johnny Herbert, so it is now Zanardi 5th and Herbert 6th.
Sorry, Bob. Long stop for Wendlinger. We heard him misfire as he left the pit lane the last time. The misfire never cleared up all the way around the lap, and he drove straight back in.
Out of the pit lane he comes once again. As he leaves, he will pass the penalty box where moments ago Aguri Suzuki was parked by the officials for a 10-second stop-and-go penalty. We must assume it was for blocking. Here you saw Suzuki coming into the pits.
Well, we saw him earlier ahead of Alesi. Alesi shook his fist at him. No doubt the Italians took note of that. We saw Wendlinger behind him for a long time, and they decided they would bring him in for a frustrating, for a driver, 10-second penalty. However, the stewards see it, they make the call, and then it's too late to argue later.
The old standing 10 count. For an infraction, blocking on the racetrack, we will assume. You saw his crewman running up there with the starter. Pretty alert work by that footwork crew, knowing that in case he stalled the car, they wanted to have the starter at that end of the track as quickly as possible.
Now we have a difficult situation about to face Alain Prost. It is beginning to rain. That's it. He never made it round. That is Carl Wendlinger. He never made it around. So whatever was misfiring on that car obviously got worse. But I was about to say, it is raining harder and harder here. Williams are ready in the pits with wet weather tires. But we have less than 10 laps to go, and the conditions may change dramatically again.
The gap from leader Alain Prost to second place Michael Schumacher now 49.899 seconds. A lap down is Martin Brundle, who is a minute 12 behind, and then J.J. Leto, and they are still sliding through Tosa as they climb the hill.
And here's the battle here for fourth place. Zanardi is getting stronger every lap here. You see the car wiggle under braking there, but J.J. Leto is being reeled in by Zanardi. This is for fourth place. Oh, Leto gets it sideways. He gets it sideways, and he almost takes off Zanardi. And look at Herbert, tries to stick his nose under his teammate. Well, well, well.
No team orders in the Lotus pit, it would appear. Zanardi and Herbert all over each other at any opportunity. J.J. Leto just ahead of them with that brightly colored helmet. Here's another look.
Now watch what happens. Leto locks those rear brakes. We've seen that many times. Now look, he tries to gather himself up. Oh, they touch. They definitely touch there. And now Herbert tries to get down the inside, realizes it's not a place to make a pass, but Leto hanging on for all he's worth with less than 9 laps to go.
Prost, Schumacher, Brundle, Leto, Zanardi, and Herbert in the points-paying positions. Ayo, Barbaza, Suzuki, Badauer, and now Wendlinger out of the race. 10 cars remain with 9 laps to go.
Well, the Italian adrenaline rush can be a red mist in front of the eyes sometimes, but performing in a high points-paying position in front of your hometown crowd can absolutely spur you on, and Zanardi is going to make another attack here on J.J. Leto. Didn't make it under braking.
Virtually every corner where we see an attack is where somebody had problems earlier in the day. That was where Damon Hill went off earlier. Where J.J. Leto had problems was where Michael Andretti went off.
And they're embroiled in their own battle here. You saw Schumacher coming up behind them, so he will get embroiled in this battle now, and they will not move aside to let Schumacher go by, because when there's points at stake, you do not move away and let anybody else's race go ahead. You concentrate on your own.
Up atop the hill, there may be more majestic racetracks in Formula One, but none that will give you the experience of Imola. All night long, the fans were on the hillside cheering for the brand of the prancing horse, Ferrari, to no avail. We'll be back. We are back live at Imola, and there you got a quick look at the latest drama. That was the Lotus of Alessandro Zanardi, who tried to make a move, and it backfired. Derek?
This is the very last chicane, and he loses it under braking and leaves the racetrack backwards and hits the wall on the outside. He then drove back onto the racetrack, and look at this. Look at this. The car is on fire here, and believe me, you need more than Loctite to keep this car together at this stage.
You saw the tire depart. By then, Zanardi knew his cause was hopeless. Still burning furiously at the back, he managed to pull it off directly in front of a fire station.
Dare I say, the adrenaline rush or the red mist became a little bit foggy in the braking area for that last left-right chicane.
I was just glad to see him pull back on the racetrack. He went into that corner like an outfielder chasing a fly ball in a baseball stadium. I wasn't sure the impact wasn't going to be a whole lot heavier than that. As it was, it looked as though he just severed an oil line or something like that and started that furious blaze. There's where the flags wave, announcing where his car came to a stop, as Alain Prost flashes through with 55 laps complete. Here's another look from our host broadcaster, RAI. Watch as he goes around backwards, still at great speed, heading for that concrete.
And he hits the outside wall. You can see that. That's what does all the damage to that left rear suspension. But look the way he points. He's, in fact, in an escape road. He just sticks it back into gear. You saw one of the track marshals get back up off his knees. And now the car's engulfed in flames. And he he's still not ready to give up. He still wants to try and finish in the points.
Alessandro Zanardi out of the car, a quiet, even happy-go-lucky young guy. Boy, obviously a tiger behind the wheel. He wanted that one and see if he could keep that car going to the end with just a couple of laps remaining in this race.
And J.J. Leto will now have Johnny Herbert behind him very shortly. There they are at the top of the hill here. Herbert manages to close up on J.J. Leto, so the Lotus could in fact make a legitimate attack for that 4th place position.
Prost, Schumacher, Brundle, Leto, Herbert, and now Felipe Ayo makes his way up into the points. One of the elder statesmen of Formula One racing at this point.
And how difficult it can be in these iffy conditions to just get the braking and the gear changing just exactly as you want it.
Once more across the top of the hill, under the bridge, and then downhill, hard on the brakes. You see the finish flags waving at the upper left from the grandstand in honor of J.J. Leto.
It looks like under braking that in fact Johnny Herbert is able to close that gap between himself and the Sauber car under heavy braking. You see it right here. That's heavy braking down to 2nd gear. That is where he has a little advantage in the Lotus over that Sauber.
2 years ago, J.J. Leto had his best Formula One finish, a 3rd place in this race. Right now, as he is in 4th position, as they rocket down through the Tamburello corner, head for the corner. There is the top 6 leaderboard above the start-finish line. The only man with a time next to his number, the number 2, Williams Renault of 3-time world champion Alain Prost. Welcome back live to Imola, Italy, where Michael Schumacher right there runs in 2nd place, having made up 5 seconds on the last lap to Alain Prost, the race leader. Oh, and a puff of smoke. Johnny Herbert is in trouble.
No, the Lotus explodes in a cloud of smoke under braking for the same chicane that Michael Andretti went off earlier. That will now move Barbazza again into a points-paying position for the Minardi. What a disaster for Johnny Herbert.
2 Lotus cars in the points. Now, this is a team that is well down on funding compared to the red carpet clubs like Williams and McLaren. They do so much with so little when it comes to funding. With 2 cars in the points, they will score none today. There you see 2 laps remaining. Here's another look at Aguri Suzuki doing a little agricultural racing. That's become a regular spur to that chicane. People have been going through the grass there all day.
I hate to tell you, but I've been through there myself a few times. Under braking is when you get in trouble, and the curve is so high that in fact, and rather than try and make it around, it's actually easier to straighten the car up and go over the grass like we saw Damon Hill do on the very first lap. But Johnny Herbert is not going to make it round to the pit lane, so he will have to walk on those fragile legs, should I say.
Johnny Herbert, who had a terrifying Formula 3000 crash in the mid-'80s, driving in England, took a long time to get back on his feet, then performed superbly in his Formula One debut in Brazil with the Benetton team finishing 4th. He was dropped by the team shortly thereafter because they didn't think he would be healthy enough to handle the high-speed circuits with their heavy braking loads. But the Lotus team under Peter Collins and Peter Wright has given him another chance. I tell you, pretty soon they're going to be talking about Johnny Herbert kind of luck, the way they used to talk about Dan Gurney kind of luck. Just when it looks like things are going your way, something jumps up and bites you. Last lap for Alain Prost.
And things are definitely going his way. There was a lot of animosity, I suppose, after Donington when people said that Prost was just not as fast as Senna in the race under racing conditions. He actually said, I am as fast as Senna in the race. In fact, I was going faster quite a lot of the time in Donington. I think it was his decisions to make 7 pit stops. Can you imagine a total of 7 pit stops he had at Donington? But nothing like that today. Things have gone his way, but he did want to point out that he does think he is as fast as Senna in the rain. Not sure I agree.
Well, he'll pull even with Senna with victories this year, 2 apiece, and he will close up to within 2 points of the Brazilian in the battle between 3-time world driving champions. The run for the 1993 title, and now J.J. Leto has expired.
J.J. Leto now emulates the Lotus. Blue oil smoke is a real telltale. We now have a total of 4 cars. We have 4 cars, including Barbatza, are the only cars left running here.
Alain Prost makes his way around the last time through Rivazza. He has 2 more chicanes ahead of him, and then the checkered flag awaits as Alain Prost will take the 46th victory of his Grand Prix career, extending his all-time record for both victories and points. He's the only man with more than 700 points in Grand Prix competition. Behind him, Ayrton Senna, the only man with more than 500. Alain Prost and the Williams team have been a terrific match this year. And I think we can tell at this point that it's going to be Prost and Senna back and forth all season long. Now there's Michael Schumacher. He will finish second, approximately 32 seconds down to race winner Prost, who judged his last couple of laps superbly.
And Schumacher will be delighted with this second place finish. Look, the arm is in the air. He has struggled just to finish a race this year. Never mind trying to get on the podium. But now he's in second place with his only finish this year so far. Raises his arm. He is delighted with that car.
Let's get down to the pit lane now, and James Allen.
Frank Williams, a delighted team owner. Alain Prost has been some criticism, but he's shown today he's really one of the greats, isn't he?
Yes, he drove superbly in the wet and the half wet, and the last 15 laps he's been operating with a very stuck, I should say, wide open throttle. That was a major problem, but he brought it in fine, which is very good.
Has it been a hard time for Williams with all the press criticism there's been of Prost's actions over the last couple of races?
Don't read it.
Well done anyway, Frank. Back to you, Bob.
Frank Williams has created a dynasty. And there you see some of the fans getting on the racetrack in what has become a rather disconcerting trend in Formula One. Fans jumping on the racetrack while the cars are still circulating.
Interesting interview from Frank. He is only interested in winning. That's all he's interested in. His comments after races and interviews are usually very short and sharp, and sometimes very cutting. And he will make cutting remarks even about his own driver sometimes. He made some about Patrese last year, because remember, if he finishes second, he does not believe this team did a good job.
In fact, he made just those kinds of comments about this man, Alain Prost. After the Donington race, he said, our #1 driver did not make good decisions. In fact, afterwards, as you see J.J. Leto getting a lift from Philippe Ayot, Frank Williams, the team, and Renault issued a press release saying that no matter what you read in the press, there's Fabrizio Barbaza, a happy guy. No matter what you read in the press, we fully support Alain Prost. But you're right, Derek. Frank Williams regards even the multi-millionaires of Formula One as employees who are sent out there to do a job. And his man has done one today. Alain Prost, your winner in the Grand Prix of San Marino.
Great to see pictures like Barbatza smiling from ear to ear in front of his hometown crowd. Remember, in the smaller teams, World Championship points are so valuable, and the minority team that moved to the Ford engine package this year have been more reliable than ever, and Christian Fittipaldi gave them a 4th place finish earlier, and now Barbatza gives them yet another points-paying position.
Behind Prost and Schumacher, Martin Brundle will finish 3rd, a lap down. J.J. Leto will not. Therefore, Philippe Ayot and Fabrizio Barbaza will score points. The only other cars running at the end, I believe, was Luca Badoer. So tremendous attrition here today, as you've seen Alain Prost pulling into the Parc Fermé, where his kart will be inspected before the results are made official. We'll take a quick timeout. When we return, we'll have some final thoughts as we wrap things up from Imola, Italy, and the Grand Prix of San Marino. And the rain now begins to fall heavier. We'll be back. Back live at Imola, where the celebration has begun. Down in the pit lane is James Allen.
Well, it's pouring with rain, but I've got a very happy J.J. Leto with me. You blew up on the last lap, J.J., but you're still 4th.
Yeah, luckily we were quick enough in the beginning of the race. I mean, starting from the 16th place because of the suspension failures on Friday and Saturday. I was a little bit unhappy, but anyway, this morning the car felt really good, and when it started to rain, I knew that I can be quick. But the rain didn't really help a lot. It was just a couple of first laps, and I overtook quite many cars. But then, you know, there was dry line, and everybody was going pretty fast, so it was difficult to overtake. Just changing the slicks, and then just the race was going on more and more. But, you know, it just, I was fighting all the way, and in the end, you know, I was 4th, happy.
Difficult race physically?
Not physically, I mean, not really hard at all. I could go to run 20 kilometers after this.
Well done anyway, JJ. Back to you, Bob.
All right, thank you, James. Of course he could run 20 kilometers. JJ Leto is a triathlete. He could probably bike about 100 miles or so as well. As you take a look at the podium, here's a look at final results. Alain Prost over Michael Schumacher by 32.4 seconds, the margin of victory. Martin Brundle comes home 1 lap down in third, followed by the man you just heard from, JJ Leto. Philippe Ayot will add to his career points total of 5 in his 97th Grand Prix start. Philippe Ayot is 5th. Fabrizio Barbaza in 6th position, followed by Luca Badoer, Johnny Herbert, and Aguri Suzuki among the classified finishers, but only 5 cars listed as running at the finish. Now there you see Alain Prost on top. A great performance for him. On the left, Michael Schumacher. On the right, Martin Brundle. And once again, it was a year ago at this race that Martin Brundle's career really became consistent as far as being a point scorer.
And around the paddock, I saw Martin Brundle this weekend. He had that very serious, tense look on his face, as if he was hoping that something would fall into his lap and could turn this season around. I guarantee you he is mindful of that now as he stands on that prestigious victory rostrum. Michael Schumacher's been there many times, and Alain Prost has been there more times than any other man in the history of Formula One Grand Prix racing.
Alain Prost hoists the trophy, his 46th Grand Prix victory, including one nearly every year since 1980. Truly one of the great drivers of all time in Formula One racing, and a man who will close within 2 points of Ayrton Senna for the lead in the run for the 1993 World Driving Championship. I imagine one of those trophies goes to the team, Williams, and the other one is Alain Prost to keep.
Just going to say that when you go to the factories of these Formula One teams, it's usually in the contract of these drivers that the teams keep the trophies. So they will be in the Williams factory back at Didcot.
As you can see, the crowd pressing close to get a look at their heroes. We'll be back in just a moment. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of San Marino has been brought to you by Bud Dry. For a beer that's refreshingly different, try Bud Dry. And by Suzuki. Your Suzuki motorcycle dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it. Back at Imola, Italy, the celebration well underway as the crowd forces its way down to victory lane. Here's a look at the points. Ayrton Senna with 26 by 2 over today's winner, Alain Prost. Damon Hill third with 12. A look at the Constructors' Championship shows Williams pulling out of a tie with McLaren to lead by 10 points, with Benetton third, followed by Ligier, Sauber, and Minardi. Ferrari sadly drops off the points page. They will remain with just 1 point in the 1993 season. Down in pit lane, James Allen is standing by with the 1987 IndyCar Rookie of the Year, Fabrizio Barbaza.
Thank you, Bob. The Tifosi are absolutely everywhere. They're swarming through the pit lane. I'm with Fabrizio Barbaza. That's your second points-paying position. You look a very happy man.
I say yes, because second race in Formula One that I can finish 2 points. Why I'm not to be happy.
You had a little bit of a fever this morning. Is you still feeling bad?
Yeah, fever, headache, and a cough, and everything. And the race for me was so hard, and I'm very happy to finish this.
Well, Fabrizio Barbaza learned how to be tough in IndyCar racing, no doubt. Back to you, Bob.
All right, thank you, James. We want to remind you about checkered flag coverage of the Grand Prix of San Marino. It'll be coming your way Monday, May 3rd at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And our next stop on the Formula One World Tour will be the Grand Prix of Spain from Barcelona. That will be Sunday, May 9th at 7:50 a.m. Eastern Time. Live coverage here on ESPN. Derek Daly, your thoughts on a wild afternoon?
Well, it is a wild afternoon, and in fact, you have to look back over the 4 races so far this year. They really have gone Senna's way until today. Now Prost closes within 2 points at the top of that Drivers' Championship leaderboard. We can look at the Manufacturers' Championship. Williams are clear with that. But really, the Drivers' Championship is what everybody looks at, and it is a real fight from here on in.
We thought the battle would continue between Senna and Prost. It shall. We thought we might see some new faces, and we did. We thought Ferrari might end their 37-race non-winning streak. They did not. Not a great day for the Tifosi. but a great day for Formula One. The battle will continue. We will be in Spain next. I am Bob Varsha for Derek Daly and James Allen. Thanks for being with us. Your winner, Alain Prost of France at the Grand Prix of San Marino. So long from Imola, Italy.